cancel your Christmas plans this year. That's according to the Prime Minister, and it contradicts the advice of the boss of the UK Health Security Agency, Dr Jenny Harris.
The Prime Minister and his staff claims of breaking COVID rules by attending crowded parties last year. But Number 10 insists rules were followed. Those were in inverted commas. Joining us now is Health Secretary Sajid Javid.
Morning.
Health Secretary.
Good morning.
OK, let's get clear on this then. The front of the Daily Mirror, you'll be perfectly aware, is a headline which says, Boris Party broke COVID rules. We're about to try and establish the rules for this year's Christmas gatherings. Was there a party last year at which the Prime Minister gave a speech, a leaving do at Number 10 on November the 27th, as the country was in its second lockdown?
Well, good morning, but I'm not aware of every single activity that goes on in Number 10, but what I am aware of and absolutely certain of is that all rules, and especially around the pandemic, they would have been followed at all times. Of that, I would be absolutely certain. OK,
well, obviously, everybody was trying to follow the rules. We were in a lockdown. That means people could not meet on that date, 27th of November. They could not meet indoors. And that meant people could not be together during the lockdown. We know the consequences of that for people staying together, for loneliness, for family unity. It would be quite significant, wouldn't it, for you as the Health Secretary now, if you discovered there was a crowded party in Number 10 during the lockdown?
Well, I think if I discovered there was a crowded party anywhere in the country, whether it's a Number 10 or not, that broke the rules, that would be of some significance. But the point here is you're asking me about Number 10. It's a government department. And government departments, and especially, I would say this, especially Number 10, the heart of government, would have been really clear about all the rules and would have followed all the rules at all times.
So we can clear this up very quickly, Secretary of State. I don't want to say the word obviously because nothing obvious about it, but we can say obviously, therefore. If any minister or MP or anybody in political life attended that party, you'd agree with me that they should be subject to the laws, and if the laws included fining and or criminal sanction, they should be subject to them. Yes or no?
Well, look, Rob, you're assuming there that there was a party, first of all.
Yes, I am.
That there were X number of people at some party. You're making all these assumptions, and you're basing that on one report in one paper. Sure. I think you'll know that there have been reports that have been misleading in newspapers in the past, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's happening all over again. But the important thing is that all rules are followed at all times, especially in government departments, government officials, ministers. All rules should be followed.
OK, so under what rule, because you're saying rules were followed, you're absolutely adamant all rules were followed.
Yes.
What rule would have allowed this party to go ahead at Number 10 during the lockdown?
Well, again, you're assuming that there was a party. I'm not. I'm afraid that I'm not going to give that credence because I just can't.
So you're saying there wasn't a party during the lockdown?
As I say, I wasn't even in government at the time, let alone being a minister. So I would have been nowhere near Number 10. So I cannot tell you, what kind of meetings and things are actually going on a daily basis. I don't think anyone would reasonably think I could know that. But what
I think people would reasonably assume that having seen the Daily Mirror this morning, you would have asked.
Well, let's try another way.
What I can be very confident on, as I say again, is that all rules would have been followed at all times.
Well, let's try it another way, and therefore, if they haven't, you would agree that those politicians should be censured. What would you say to a politician that attended a party when everybody else was at arm's length, being locked down away from their families? If you heard that had happened, what will your message be to them if it turns out to be true?
My message to anyone, whether they're a politician or not, and perhaps they could be a TV presenter that hadn't followed the rules, would be you should have followed the rules. It'd be clear, it'd be incumbent on all of them. And so it doesn't matter whether you're a politician, you're a TV presenter, whoever you are. These rules applied equally to everyone. So you should follow the rules. But as I say, you're asking me about a particular report in one newspaper. And I'm not going to give it credence in terms of that there were parties and things, but what I can tell you is that all rules would have been followed at all times.
I think what people will hear is it is likely that gatherings took place, but that the rules were followed. And what they'll be wondering is how those gatherings could have taken place within the rules.
Well, perhaps. And perhaps they'll be doing that because you spent about 6-7 minutes discussing this with me, and you want to give those thoughts credence. But as I can say, is that the rules would have been followed at all times.
You are not categorically telling us that these gatherings did not take place. And there is a persistent suspicion amongst people, especially as we come up to Christmas again, that there is a rule that is made at the top, but that on a number of occasions, and you've already said, well, we shouldn't read everything that we believe in we shouldn't believe everything we read in the papers. But they know what happened to Matt Hancock as a result of a story that was in the papers, and they know what happened to Dominic Cummings as well, story that was in this particular paper that we're discussing this morning. People do not want to be told constantly to do things by people who then do not do them.
I agree with that. Of course, that, as I say, there were rules in place then. There are different rules in place now, some of the same rules, but most of those rules are gone. But whatever the rules are at any point in time, they're there for all of us to follow. And recently, in the last few days, of course, you'll know that there's been some new rules because of this new variant and the potential risk of this variant. And it is important for all of us to follow those rules. And some of those are actual hard rules, others are in guidance, and this is all there to help us to try and get through this pandemic. And with this particular variant right now, our strategy is to buy time so that we can assess it and we can build up our defences.
And just to establish, the two rules which were in place on the dates of these alleged gatherings were that people could not meet indoors, no social meeting indoors. OK, so let's talk about this Christmas. Dr. Jenny Harris has said, please don't socialise when you don't need to. Is that the case? Is that what you would back?
I think people can go about their business, whether it's socialising or otherwise, as long as they are following the rules. So we've just been talking about that. So as long as you stick to the rules, there is guidance also in place. That guidance hasn't changed. And in fact, the guidance was there even before the discovery of this new variant. And in that guidance, it was already clear that as we head into winter, that as the days get darker and it gets colder, the virus, the COVID virus and other viruses like the flu virus, which is still lurking out there, it likes those kinds of conditions. And so gradually we all become a bit more cautious. So I think that current guidance still applies. But if you have gatherings planned and other, maybe business meetings and things, that as long as they're within the rules, then people should go ahead with their plans.
Well, the rules are face masks. And just to be clear, the Prime Minister didn't want to rule out and cancel Christmas, or whatever we're calling it nowadays. But he said he doesn't rule anything out. Health Secretary, speaking to millions of viewers out there, can you confidently say there will not be another lockdown this Christmas?
What I've learned in my few months as Health Secretary is that there are no guarantees in this pandemic. I think the likelihood of such a thing happening is very, very, very low. But what we can't rule out is any particular measure just at this point in time, because we need to always look at the data in front of us and do what we can to protect the British people from this public health this public health challenge. The most important thing that we can do right now, and that's why we talked a lot about this yesterday and announced this massive expansion in the booster program, is to build our defences, because the vaccines still remain our major wall of defence. It is possible that in light of this new variant that they could be less effective. We just don't know the precise answer to that, and we're trying to find that out as quickly as we can. But it's also very likely that they will remain effective against serious disease. And that's what makes the booster program so much more important. We've had the most successful booster program of any European country so far, over 18 million boosts done already, more than a third of the adult population. But now now we want to extend that offer to the entire adult population and make sure they have all had an offer by the end of January.
All right, we have to leave it there, but it will be significant to people watching that you have basically said you cannot guarantee that there will be no lockdown over Christmas.
Well, just to be very clear, I don't think there will be any lockdown, whether it's over Christmas or in the future. I don't think that's a plan for anyone. But you asked me whether anything in particular can be ruled out. And as the Prime Minister said yesterday, there are no guarantees. But I think that as we learn more about this variant, we're in the 3-week review window, we'll be able to learn more and say more about what we do next.
All right, Sajid Javid, the Health Secretary, thanks very much
Health
indeed.
Secretary.